Hashtag the hook. What happens when a child's pure heart sees beyond wealth, status, and society's expectations? When 8-year-old Isabella Montgomery was asked to choose her new mother from a lineup of the world's most beautiful models, everyone expected her to pick the obvious choice. After all, she was the daughter of tech billionaire Marcus Montgomery, a man who could have anything money could buy. But sometimes, the most profound lessons come from the smallest voices. Isabella's choice would shake the foundations of high society, challenge her father's carefully constructed world, and prove that love isn't something you can purchase with a platinum card. This is the true story of how one little girl's decision changed everything, not just for her family, but for everyone who witnessed the power of seeing people for who they really are, not what they appear to be. In a world where appearance is everything and money talks loudest, Isabella Montgomery was about to teach everyone a lesson they would never forget. Marcus Montgomery stood on the balcony of his Manhattan penthouse, looking out at the city that had made him one of the richest men in America. At 42, he had everything most people could only dream of. His tech company, Montgomery Industries, was worth over $10 billion. He owned houses in 5 countries, a private jet, and could buy anything his heart desired. But there was one thing missing from his perfect life: the right woman to be a mother to his 8-year-old daughter, Isabella. His wife, Catherine, had died 3 years ago in a car accident. Since then, Marcus had been raising Isabella with the help of their live-in housekeeper and nanny, Maria Santos. Maria was a 50-year-old woman from Guatemala who had worked for the family since Isabella was born. She was quiet, hardworking, and devoted to Isabella, but Marcus barely noticed her. To him, she was just part of the household staff. Marcus had been thinking about remarrying for months now. Isabella needed a mother figure, and he needed a partner who could fit into his world of charity galas, business dinners, and high society events. He wanted someone beautiful, educated, and sophisticated, someone who would look perfect on his arm and in the pages of lifestyle magazines. That morning, Marcus was having coffee in his study when Isabella walked in, still wearing her pink pajamas. Her long brown hair was messy from sleep, and she was carrying her favorite stuffed elephant, Mr. Peanuts. "Daddy, are you really going to find me a new mommy?" Isabella asked, climbing onto his lap. Marcus set down his coffee and hugged his daughter. "I'm thinking about it, sweetheart. Would you like that?" Isabella nodded seriously. "I miss having a mommy. But I want her to be nice, not just pretty." "Of course she'll be nice," Marcus said, though he was mostly thinking about appearance and social status. "And I want you to help me choose her." Isabella's eyes lit up. "Really? I can help pick my new mommy." "Yes, princess. We'll do this together." Later that day, Marcus called his friend Richard Blackwell, who owned a top modeling agency in New York. Richard was known for representing some of the most beautiful women in the world. "Richard, I need your help with something," Marcus said over the phone. "I'm looking to get married again, and I want to meet some exceptional women." "Say no more, my friend," Richard replied smoothly. "I have just the thing. Why don't you come to my agency next week? I'll arrange for you to meet some of our finest models. These are women who are not just beautiful, but intelligent and cultured too." "Perfect. And, Richard, I want to bring Isabella. She should have a say in who becomes her stepmother." "Of course. Children love beautiful people. I'm sure she'll be delighted." The following week, Marcus put on his best suit and made sure Isabella was dressed in her prettiest dress, a white one with small blue flowers that Maria had carefully ironed for her. As they drove to the modeling agency in Marcus's black Bentley, Isabella chatted excitedly about meeting her potential new mother. "Daddy, what if I don't like any of them?" Isabella asked, looking out the window at the busy New York streets. "Then, we'll keep looking until we find the right one," Marcus assured her. "But I think you'll like these ladies. They're all very special." When they arrived at the Blackwell agency, Richard greeted them personally. The building was sleek and modern, with white walls covered in glamorous photos of models. Everything was designed to impress, from the crystal chandelier in the lobby to the imported marble floors. "Marcus, my friend." Richard shook hands enthusiastically. "And this must be the beautiful Isabella. My dear, you're going to love what I have planned for you today." Richard led them to a luxurious conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. I've selected 5 of our most exceptional models for you to meet, he explained to Marcus. Each one is not only stunning, but also educated and refined. They're the kind of women who would be perfect for a man of your status. Isabella sat quietly in a large leather chair, swinging her legs that didn't quite reach the floor. She watched as her father and Richard talked about the women they were about to meet, discussing their measurements, their education, and their family backgrounds like they were interviewing candidates for a job. The first model to enter was Scarlett Devine, a 28-year-old blonde from California. She was tall and elegant, with perfect makeup and a designer dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. She had a degree from Stanford and spoke 3 languages. "Hello, Marcus," Scarlett said in a smooth voice, extending her perfectly manicured hand. "And you must be Isabella. What a lovely dress you're wearing." Isabella smiled politely, but didn't say much. Scarlett talked about her modeling career, her charity work with endangered animals, and her love of fine art. She was everything Marcus thought he wanted: beautiful, sophisticated, and successful. The second model was Natasha Volkov, a stunning brunette from Russia who had been on the covers of major fashion magazines. She was 26, spoke 5 languages, and had a master's degree in international relations. She spent 20 minutes talking about her travels around the world and her connections to European royalty. "Isabella, darling," Natasha said in her slight Russian accent, "I've traveled to over 40 countries. Perhaps I could take you to Paris or Milan sometime. Have you ever been to Europe?" Isabella shook her head shyly. She was starting to feel overwhelmed by all these glamorous women who seemed so different from anyone she knew. The third model was Priya Sharma, an Indian-American woman who had won several beauty pageants and was working on her PhD in psychology. She was intelligent and warm, and she actually got down to Isabella's level when they talked. "I love children," Priya said genuinely. "I volunteer at a children's hospital in my free time." "What are your favorite things to do, Isabella?" Isabella perked up a little. "I like to draw and read stories. And I like to help Maria in the kitchen sometimes." "Who's Maria?" Priya asked kindly. "She's our housekeeper," Marcus answered quickly. "She helps take care of Isabella." The fourth model was Alexandra Chun, a Chinese-American woman who was not only a successful model, but also a businesswoman with her own fashion line. She was elegant and spoke passionately about her work and her dreams of expanding her business internationally. "I believe in strong female role models," Alexandra told Isabella. "It's important for young girls to see that they can achieve anything they set their minds to." Isabella nodded politely, but she was getting tired and a little confused. All these women were very pretty and very smart, but something felt wrong about the whole situation. The fifth and final model was Gabrielle Laurent, a French woman who had been a ballet dancer before becoming a model. She was graceful and cultured, and she spoke beautifully about art, music, and literature. "Perhaps we could attend the ballet together sometime," Gabrielle suggested to Isabella. "I think you would enjoy it very much." After all 5 women had presented themselves, Richard and Marcus stepped aside to discuss the candidates, while Isabella remained in the conference room. She could hear them talking in low voices about which woman would be the best choice. "They're all exceptional," Richard was saying. "Scarlett has the best connections in society. Natasha is absolutely stunning and very sophisticated. Priya is the most nurturing, which might be good for Isabella. Alexandra is successful in her own right, so she'd understand your business world. And Gabrielle has this European elegance that would be perfect for your image." Marcus nodded thoughtfully. "They're all impressive." Isabella seemed to respond best to Priya, but I think Alexandra or Gabrielle might be better long-term choices. They have the sophistication I'm looking for. While her father talked about her future stepmother like he was choosing a new car, Isabella sat alone in the big chair, thinking about the 5 beautiful women she had just met. They had all been nice enough, but none of them felt right to her. They all seemed to be performing, like they were on a stage putting on a show. Isabella thought about what made someone a good mother. Her own mother had been beautiful too, but what Isabella remembered most was how Catherine had always made time for her, how she had read bedtime stories with funny voices, how she had kissed scraped knees and made them better, and how she had always smelled like the lavender perfume she wore. None of the models reminded Isabella of her mother. They were all very pretty and very smart, but they felt cold and distant. When they looked at her, Isabella felt like they were looking at an accessory that
Look over
came with
there,
her
dear.
father,
See how they
not
watch
like
us
they
with such
actually cared
interest?
about
Yes,
her.
I see
As
them.
Isabella
That's
sat
because
there
you're doing
thinking,
wonderfully.
she heard familiar footsteps in the hallway. The door opened, and Maria peeked in. "Excuse me, Mr. Montgomery," Maria said softly in her accented English. "I brought Isabella a snack and her favorite juice box. I thought she might be getting hungry." Isabella's face immediately brightened. "Maria," she called out, jumping down from the chair and running to hug the older woman. Maria smiled and hugged Isabella back. She was wearing her simple black uniform and comfortable shoes, and her graying hair was pulled back in a neat bun. Compared to the 5 glamorous models, she looked plain and ordinary. But when Isabella hugged her, Maria's whole face lit up with genuine love and warmth. "How is my little angel doing?" Maria asked in Spanish, which she and Isabella often spoke together. "Are you being good for your papa?" "Yes, but I'm tired," Isabella replied in Spanish. "These ladies are very pretty, but they don't feel like mommies to me." Maria glanced at Marcus, who was still deep in conversation with Richard. She could see the 5 models through the glass wall, all still primping and hoping to be chosen. "Sometimes the most important things are not what we see with our eyes, Majida," Maria said gently, stroking Isabella's hair. "Sometimes we must see with our hearts." Marcus walked back into the room just as Maria was giving Isabella her snack. He barely glanced at the housekeeper, focusing instead on his daughter. "So, Isabella, what did you think of the ladies?" he asked. "Did any of them seem like someone you'd like to have as your new mother?" Isabella looked at her father, then at Maria, who was quietly organizing Isabella's snack and making sure she had everything she needed. She thought about how Maria had been there every morning for the past 3 years, making her breakfast and braiding her hair for school. She thought about how Maria had held her when she cried after nightmares, how she had taught her to make cookies, and how she had never missed a single school play or parent conference. "Daddy," Isabella said slowly, "can I ask you something?" "Of course, sweetheart." "What makes someone a good mommy?" Marcus smiled, thinking this was going to be easy. "Well, a good mother should be beautiful, intelligent, and able to take care of you and fit into our family well." Isabella considered this. "But what about love, Daddy? And kindness? And being there when you're sad?" "Of course, those things too," Marcus said, though he hadn't really been thinking about those qualities when he was evaluating the models. Isabella looked around the room at all the luxury and glamour, then back at Maria, who was quietly cleaning up crumbs from Isabella's snack. In that moment, Isabella realized something that would change everything. The truth was, she already had someone in her life who loved her unconditionally, who was always there for her, and who had been like a mother to her for the past 3 years. It wasn't one of the beautiful models in the next room. It was Maria, the woman everyone else seemed to ignore. But Isabella was only 8 years old, and she wasn't sure how to tell her father what she was thinking. She could see how excited he was about the 5 models, and she didn't want to disappoint him. So she decided to wait and see what would happen next. As they prepared to leave the modeling agency, Richard pulled Marcus aside one more time. "Take your time deciding," Richard said. "But don't wait too long. These are exceptional women, and they won't stay available forever. I'd recommend making your choice within the next few days." Marcus nodded, shaking hands with each of the models and promising to be in touch soon. Isabella said polite goodbyes, but her mind was elsewhere. On the drive home, Marcus talked excitedly about the women they had met. "What did you think of Priya?" he asked. "She seemed to really connect with you. Or maybe Alexandra. She's very successful and independent." Isabella listened quietly, watching the city pass by outside the window. When they got home, Marcus went immediately to his study to make phone calls about his business, leaving Isabella with Maria. "How was your day, Pequena?" Maria asked as she helped Isabella out of her fancy dress and into comfortable clothes. "It was strange," Isabella said honestly. "All those ladies were very pretty, but none of them felt right." Maria nodded understandingly. "Sometimes adults make things more complicated than they need to be." As Maria brushed Isabella's hair, the little girl made a decision that would surprise everyone. She had found the perfect mother figure. She just wasn't sure anyone else would see it the same way. That night, as Marcus tucked Isabella into bed, she looked up at him with serious eyes. "Daddy, what if I don't want any of those ladies to be my new mommy?" The next morning, Marcus woke up with his mind made up. He had spent the evening reviewing the profiles of all 5 models, and he had decided that Alexandra Chun would be the perfect choice. She was beautiful, successful, and sophisticated. Most importantly, she wouldn't be marrying him just for his money since she had her own business empire. Over breakfast, Marcus watched as Maria served Isabella her favorite pancakes shaped like butterflies. The housekeeper had been making these special pancakes every Saturday morning for 3 years, and Isabella always giggled with delight when she saw them. "Maria, you spoil her," Marcus said absent-mindedly, not really paying attention as he scrolled through emails on his phone. "Children should feel special, Mr. Montgomery," Maria replied quietly, adding fresh strawberries to Isabella's plate in the shape of a smile. Marcus barely heard her. His mind was on the phone call he planned to make to Alexandra after breakfast. He had already mentally planned their first official date, dinner at the most exclusive restaurant in the city, followed by a private box at the opera. "Isabella," Marcus said, finally, looking up from his phone, "I've been thinking about yesterday. I think Alexandra would be perfect for our family. She's accomplished, elegant, and she clearly likes children." Isabella stopped eating and looked at her father. "But, Daddy, you haven't asked me what I think yet." "What do you mean? You were there yesterday. I thought you liked her." "I did like her," Isabella said carefully. "She was nice. But there's something I need to tell you." Marcus finally put down his phone and gave his daughter his full attention. "What is it, sweetheart?" Isabella glanced at Maria, who was quietly washing dishes at the sink. The older woman's shoulders were tense, as if she could sense the importance of this conversation. "Daddy, I know who I want to be my new mommy." Marcus smiled, thinking his daughter was about to choose one of the models. "Really? Which one?" Isabella took a deep breath. "I want Maria to be my mommy." The kitchen went completely silent. Maria dropped the dish she was washing, and it clattered in the sink. Marcus stared at his daughter in shock. "Isabella, honey, Maria isn't one of the choices. She's our housekeeper." "But why can't she be?" Isabella asked innocently. "She already takes care of me like a mommy does. She makes my breakfast and helps me with my homework and reads me stories. She knows that I don't like the crust on my sandwiches and that I'm scared of thunder. She's been here for me every day since Mommy went to heaven." Marcus felt completely blindsided. This wasn't what he had planned at all. "Isabella, there's a big difference between a housekeeper and a wife. Maria is an employee. The ladies we met yesterday, they're the type of women who can be partners in my life." "But what about my life?" Isabella asked, her voice getting smaller. "Don't I get to have someone who loves me and takes care of me? Someone who already knows me?" Maria finally turned around from the sink, her eyes filled with tears. "Isabella, Menina, your father is right. I am just the housekeeper. Those beautiful ladies yesterday, they are the right choice for your family." "No, you're not just the housekeeper," Isabella said firmly, jumping up from her chair. "You're Maria. You're the person who holds me when I have bad dreams. You're the person who taught me to speak Spanish and how to make empanadas. You're the person who came to my school play when Daddy had to work late." Marcus winced at that last comment. He had missed Isabella's school play the month before because of an important business meeting. "Isabella, this is complicated," Marcus said, struggling to find the right words. "Maria and we're from very different worlds. It wouldn't work." "Why not?" Isabella asked with the straightforward logic of a child. "You're both nice people. You both take care of me. And Maria is pretty too, even if she doesn't wear fancy clothes like those other ladies." Marcus looked at Maria, really looked at her, for perhaps the first time in 3 years. She was a small woman with kind brown eyes and gentle hands that were always busy taking care of his family. Her hair was streaked with silver, and her face showed the lines of someone who had worked hard her entire life. She wasn't glamorous or sophisticated, but there was something warm and genuine about her that none of the models had possessed. "Mr. Montgomery," Maria said softly, "Isabella is just confused. She doesn't understand about social differences and what is appropriate. I will talk to her and explain." "No," Isabella said loudly, surprising both adults. "I'm not confused. I know exactly what I want. I want someone who loves me for real, not someone who just wants to look pretty next to Daddy. The 8-year-old ran out of the kitchen, leaving Marcus and Maria standing there in uncomfortable silence. Maria wrung her hands nervously. I am so sorry, Mr. Montgomery. I will speak with Isabella right away. She needs to understand her place and mine. Maria, wait, Marcus said, and something in his voice made her pause. Can I ask you something? How do you feel about Isabella? Maria's eyes filled with tears again. She is like my own daughter, Mr. Montgomery. When her mama died, my heart broke for this little girl. I have no children of my own. So Isabella, she became the child of my heart. But I know that is not my place to say. And how would you feel about yesterday? About me marrying one of those women? Maria was quiet for a long moment. It is not my place to have feelings about your personal life, sir. But if it was your place? Maria looked down at her hands. I think those ladies are very beautiful and very smart. But I think they see Isabella as part of the package that comes with you, not as a little girl who needs love and attention and someone who will put her first. Marcus realized that Maria had seen exactly what Isabella had seen, something he had been too focused on image and status to notice. Over the next few days, Marcus tried to convince Isabella to reconsider her choice. He arranged for Alexandra to come to dinner, hoping that a more casual setting would help Isabella warm up to her. Alexandra arrived wearing a perfectly coordinated outfit and carrying expensive gifts for Isabella. I brought you something special from Paris, Alexandra said, presenting Isabella with an elegant doll wearing a designer dress. She's a limited edition collectible. Thank you, Isabella said politely, but she set the doll aside without much interest. During dinner, Alexandra spoke eloquently about art, fashion, and her business ventures. She was charming and sophisticated, and Marcus could easily picture her at his side during important social events. But Isabella remained quiet throughout the meal, only speaking when directly asked a question. After Alexandra left, Marcus found Isabella in her room, playing with her old, worn stuffed elephant instead of the expensive new doll. Why don't you like Alexandra? Marcus asked, sitting on Isabella's bed. I do like her, Isabella said. She's very smart and very pretty. But, Daddy, when she looks at me, I feel like she's trying to figure out what to do with me, not like she's happy to see me. What do you mean? When Maria looks at me, her whole face smiles. When Alexandra looks at me, only her mouth smiles. Marcus was struck by his daughter's perceptiveness. Children, he realized, were much better at reading people's true intentions than adults gave them credit for. The next day, Marcus arranged for Priya to visit, thinking that since she had seemed the most nurturing, Isabella might connect with her better. Priya brought homemade cookies and spent time drawing with Isabella. You're very talented, Priya told Isabella as they colored together. Have you ever thought about taking art classes? Isabella nodded enthusiastically. Maria teaches me to draw. She's really good at it. That's wonderful. When I'm here more often, maybe we can set up a proper art studio for you. Isabella looked up from her coloring. Are you going to live here? Well, if your father and I get married, yes. Would you like that? Isabella considered this carefully. Where would Maria go? Priya looked confused. Who's Maria? Our housekeeper, Marcus explained. Isabella is very attached to her. Oh, well, once we're married, we probably wouldn't need a live-in housekeeper anymore. I could take care of the household myself. Isabella's face fell, and she stopped coloring. But where would Maria live? I'm sure she'd find another job, Priya said kindly but casually. There are lots of families who need housekeepers. That evening, after Priya left, Isabella was unusually quiet. When Maria came to tuck her in, Isabella clung to her tightly. Maria, if Daddy marries one of those ladies, will you have to go away? Maria's heart broke at the fear in Isabella's voice. I don't know, Pequena. That would be your father's decision. But where would you go? This is your home, too. Maria had been living with the Montgomery family for 8 years, since before Isabella was born. This house was indeed her home, and Isabella was like her own daughter. The thought of leaving them both was almost unbearable, but she knew that new wives typically wanted to run their own households. Don't worry about that now, Maria said gently. Whatever happens, I will always love you, and you will always be in my heart. But Isabella was worried. That night, She lay awake thinking about everything that had happened. She realized that her father was so focused on finding a wife who would fit into his world that he wasn't thinking about what would happen to the person who had been their family for the past 3 years. The next morning, Isabella made a decision. She waited until her father was having his morning coffee. Then, she walked into his study with a determined expression. "Daddy, we need to talk." Marcus looked up from his laptop. "What is it, princess?" Isabella climbed onto the chair across from his desk, sitting up very straight like she had seen adults do in important meetings. "I've been thinking about this new mommy thing, and I want to tell you something important." "Okay, I'm listening." "Those ladies you want me to choose from, they're all very nice. But they don't love me yet. They might love me someday, but right now, they just want to marry you. And if you marry one of them, Maria will have to leave." Marcus started to interrupt, but Isabella held up her hand. "Please let me finish, Daddy. Maria already loves me. She's loved me for 3 years. She knows everything about me, and I know everything about her. She makes our house feel like home. When you marry someone, aren't you supposed to marry someone who loves your family, not just someone who wants to become part of your family?" Marcus was quiet, struck by his daughter's logic. Isabella continued, "I know Maria isn't fancy like those other ladies. She doesn't have fancy clothes or fancy words. But, Daddy, she has a fancy heart. And isn't that the most important thing for a mommy to have?" "Isabella, there are complications you don't understand. Social differences, cultural differences. But, Daddy, you always taught me that people are people, no matter where they come from or what they look like. You said that's what makes America special. Were you lying?" Marcus felt like he had been slapped. His own daughter was calling him out on his hypocrisy, and she was absolutely right. He had raised her to believe in equality and treating people with respect, but when it came to his own life, he was prioritizing status over substance. "I wasn't lying," Marcus said quietly. "You're right. People are people. Then, why can't you see Maria the way I see her?" It was a simple question, but it forced Marcus to confront some uncomfortable truths about himself. Had he become so caught up in his wealthy lifestyle that he had forgotten what really mattered? Had he been so focused on maintaining his image that he had ignored the woman who had been quietly holding his family together? That afternoon, Marcus did something he hadn't done in years. Instead of going to his office, he stayed home and really observed Maria as she went about her daily routine. He watched her iron Isabella's school uniform with careful attention to every detail. He saw how she prepared Isabella's lunch, cutting the sandwiches into fun shapes and including little notes with encouraging words in Spanish. He noticed how she hummed softly while she worked, creating a peaceful atmosphere in their home. When Isabella came home from school, Marcus watched the interaction between his daughter and Maria. Isabella's whole face lit up when she saw Maria, and she immediately began chattering about her day in a mixture of English and Spanish. Maria listened to every word with complete attention, asking follow-up questions and celebrating small victories like Isabella getting a good grade on a math quiz. For the first time, Marcus realized that he had been living in a house where the most important relationship wasn't between him and his daughter, but between his daughter and the woman he had barely noticed for 3 years. That evening, Marcus made a phone call that surprised everyone, including himself. "Richard, it's Marcus Montgomery. I've made my decision about the models." "Excellent. Which lovely lady has captured your heart?" "Actually, I'm not going to marry any of them." There was silence on the other end of the phone. "I'm sorry, what?" "I said I'm not marrying any of them. Thank you for arranging the meetings." But the opportunity for Marcus to truly see Maria came unexpectedly the following week. Isabella woke up in the middle of the night with a high fever and terrible stomach pain. Marcus found her crying in her bed, clutching her stomach and calling for Maria. "My tummy hurts so bad, Daddy," Isabella whimpered, tears streaming down her flushed cheeks. Marcus felt her forehead and was alarmed by how hot she was. He had dealt with many business crises over the years, but a sick child made him feel completely helpless. He was about to call their family doctor when Maria appeared in the doorway, wearing her nightgown and looking worried. "I heard Isabella crying," Maria said softly. "What is wrong, Pequena?" "Maria." Isabella reached out for her, and Maria immediately went to the bedside, feeling Isabella's forehead and checking her temperature with the back of her hand. "She has a very high fever. Maria said, her voice filled with concern. And stomach pain. How long has she been like this? I just found her like this, Marcus said, feeling panicked. I should call Dr. Peterson. Yes, call the doctor, Maria agreed. But first, let me get her temperature down a little. While Marcus made phone calls, Maria moved into action with the calm efficiency of someone who had been caring for children her whole life. She brought cool washcloths for Isabella's forehead, helped her sip small amounts of water, and spoke to her in soothing Spanish words that seemed to calm the frightened child. Dr. Peterson arrived within an hour and diagnosed Isabella with appendicitis. She needs to go to the hospital immediately, he said. This could be serious if we wait much longer. The next few hours were a blur of activity. Marcus drove to the hospital while Maria sat in the back seat holding Isabella, who was now in significant pain. At the hospital, while Marcus dealt with paperwork and insurance forms, Maria stayed by Isabella's side, holding her hand and singing quiet lullabies in Spanish. I'm scared, Maria, Isabella whispered as they prepared her for surgery. I know, mi amor, Maria said gently, stroking Isabella's hair. But you are very brave, and the doctors are very good. I will be right here waiting for you when you wake up. Promise. I promise. As they wheeled Isabella into surgery, Marcus watched Maria's face crumple with worry and fear. For the first time, he saw clearly that this woman loved his daughter every bit as much as he did. Maybe even more, since she had been the one taking care of Isabella's daily needs while he focused on providing for them financially. During the 3 hours that Isabella was in surgery, Marcus sat in the waiting room with Maria. She prayed quietly in Spanish, her hands clasped tightly together. Marcus found himself watching her instead of reading the business reports he had brought with him. You really love her, don't you? Marcus said quietly. Maria looked up, surprised to be asked such a direct question. She is everything to me, Mr. Montgomery. When I came to work for your family, I never expected to love a child so much. But, Isabella, she became the daughter I never had. Why didn't you ever have children of your own? Maria was quiet for a moment. My husband and we tried for many years. But God had other plans. My husband died 5 years ago, and I thought I would always be alone. But then I came to work for your family, and Isabella filled the empty space in my heart. Marcus realized he knew almost nothing about Maria's personal life. In 3 years, he had never asked about her dreams, her fears, or her past. She had been invisible to him, just part of the household machinery that kept his life running smoothly. Tell me about your husband, Marcus said, genuinely curious for the first time. Maria's face softened. Carlos was a good man. He worked construction, and he dreamed of opening his own business someday. He would have loved Isabella so much. He always wanted to be a father. What would he think about what Isabella said? About wanting you to be her mother? Maria looked surprised by the question. I think he would say that love doesn't care about money or social class. Carlos always believed that the heart knows what the heart needs. When Isabella woke up from surgery, the first word she said was Maria. The second was Daddy. Marcus noticed the order and realized it wasn't accidental. Over the next 3 days, while Isabella recovered in the hospital, Marcus watched Maria care for his daughter with a devotion that was both professional and deeply personal. She barely left Isabella's side, sleeping in the uncomfortable hospital chair and making sure Isabella had everything she needed. She advocated with the nurses for better pain medication. She helped Isabella with the embarrassing tasks that illness required, and she provided the emotional comfort that helped Isabella heal. Marcus also noticed how the hospital staff responded to Maria. The nurses clearly respected her knowledge and experience with children. The doctors took her observations seriously. Even the other patients and their families seemed drawn to Maria's warm, caring presence. On the second day, while Isabella was napping, Marcus and Maria went to the hospital cafeteria for coffee. For the first time in 3 years, they had a real conversation. Maria, can I ask you something personal? Marcus said as they sat at a small table by the window. Of course, Mr. Montgomery. What do you think about when Isabella isn't around? What are your dreams for your own life? Maria looked surprised by the question. I don't think about that very much anymore. My life is taking care of Isabella and your household. But surely you have hopes for yourself. Do you want to travel? Learn new things? Have your own family? Maria was quiet for a long time. For many years after Carlos died, I thought my life was over. I was just working to survive, moving from one housekeeping job to another. But when I came to work for your family, especially after your wife died, and I saw how much Isabella needed someone to love her, I found my purpose again. Taking care of her doesn't feel like work to me. It feels like what I was meant to do. But what if Isabella grows up and doesn't need you anymore? What will you do then? I try not to think about that day, Maria admitted, her eyes filling with tears. It breaks my heart to imagine leaving her. Marcus realized that Maria had built her entire life around caring for his daughter, with no thought for her own future security or happiness. She had given them everything, and he had never even considered what she might need in return. That evening, when Isabella was feeling better, she asked Marcus a question that surprised him. "Daddy, why are you being so nice to Maria all of a sudden?" "What do you mean? You've been talking to her and asking her questions. Usually you just tell her what to do." Marcus felt ashamed. His 8-year-old daughter had noticed something about his behavior that he hadn't even been aware of. "I guess I'm trying to get to know her better," Marcus said honestly. "Good," Isabella said firmly. "Maria is the best person in the world, and you should know that about her." The next day, when they brought Isabella home from the hospital, Marcus made a decision that surprised Maria. Instead of going back to work immediately, he took time off to help with Isabella's recovery. For the first time, he worked alongside Maria, learning how to take care of his daughter's practical needs. Maria taught him how to prepare the soft foods that Isabella could eat, how to help her move around safely while her incision healed, and how to keep her entertained during the long hours of recovery. Marcus was amazed by Maria's patience and skill. She made everything look easy, but he quickly realized how much knowledge and experience went into caring for a child. "You make this look so simple," Marcus said as Maria showed him how to change Isabella's bandages without hurting her. "Practice," Maria said with a smile. "And love. When you love someone, you learn how to take care of them." During Isabella's recovery week, Marcus began to see his household and his family through completely different eyes. He noticed how Maria anticipated Isabella's needs before Isabella even knew she had them. He saw how she created small moments of joy even during a difficult time, like bringing Isabella's favorite books or putting extra marshmallows in her hot chocolate. He also began to notice Maria herself in a new way. She was beautiful, he realized, just not in the obvious way of the models he had been considering. She had a gentle beauty that came from kindness and intelligence and genuine care for others. When she smiled at Isabella, her whole face lit up. When she laughed at one of Isabella's jokes, the sound was like music. Most importantly, Marcus began to see how much Maria had sacrificed for their family. She had no social life because she was always available for Isabella. She had no personal time because her time belonged to them. She had asked for nothing beyond her salary, even though she had given them everything. One evening, after Isabella had gone to bed, Marcus found Maria in the kitchen, packing Isabella's school lunch for the next day, even though Isabella wouldn't be returning to school for several more days. "Maria, why are you making her lunch? She's not going to school tomorrow." Maria looked embarrassed. "I wanted to be ready, and I like to keep my hands busy." Marcus realized that making Isabella's lunch was more than just a chore for Maria. It was an act of love, a way of taking care of Isabella even when Isabella didn't know about it. "Maria, can we talk?" "Of course, Mr. Montgomery. I owe you an apology. Actually, I owe you many apologies." Maria looked confused. "For what?" "For not seeing you. For not appreciating what you do for our family. For treating you like you were invisible when you've been the most important person in Isabella's life." "Mr. Montgomery, you don't need to apologize. I am just the housekeeper." "No," Marcus said firmly. "You're not just anything. You're the person who has held our family together for 3 years. You're the person who has loved my daughter when I was too busy to notice what she needed. You're the person who has made our house a home." Maria's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you for saying that. I need to ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly. How do you really feel about Isabella?" "I love her like she is my own daughter," Maria said without hesitation. "I would do anything for her." "And how do you feel about the idea of me marrying someone else? Someone who might want to change how our household works?" Maria was quiet for a long time. "It would break my heart to leave Isabella. But if that is what would make you happy, and if it would be good for Isabella, I would accept it." "But you don't think it would be good for Isabella, do you? I think Isabella needs someone who loves her first, not someone who loves you and accepts her as part of the package. Marcus nodded slowly. That's what I'm beginning to understand too. Over the next few days, as Isabella continued to recover, Marcus found himself spending more and more time talking with Maria. He learned about her childhood in Guatemala, her dreams of becoming a teacher before economic necessity forced her to leave school and work as a housekeeper. He learned about her late husband's dream of opening a small restaurant. He learned that she sent most of her salary back to Guatemala to support her elderly mother and her sister's children. He also learned that Maria was much more intelligent and educated than he had assumed. She spoke 4 languages fluently and had taught herself to read English by reading to Isabella every night. She was well informed about current events and had thoughtful opinions about politics and social issues. She had simply never had anyone ask her about these things before. Most surprising to Marcus was discovering Maria's sense of humor. When she was relaxed and comfortable, she was funny and quick-witted. Isabella clearly got some of her sass from spending time with Maria. One evening, Marcus made a decision that would change everything. He asked Maria to join him and Isabella for dinner at the dining room table instead of eating separately in the kitchen as she usually did. "Are you sure, Mr. Montgomery?" Maria asked, looking uncertain. "That is not really appropriate." "I'm sure," Marcus said. "We're family, aren't we?" Family eats together. The next morning, Marcus woke up before dawn with his heart pounding. He had spent the entire night thinking about everything that had happened over the past 2 weeks. Isabella's request, Maria's devotion during the hospital stay, and his own growing awareness of what really mattered in life had all led him to a conclusion that terrified and excited him at the same time. He was falling in love with Maria Santos. It wasn't the dramatic, passionate love he had felt for his first wife, Catherine, when they were young. This was something deeper and more mature, a love built on respect, admiration, and the recognition of someone's true character. Maria had been caring for his family with selfless devotion for 3 years, and he had been too blind to see the treasure that was right in front of him. But Marcus also knew that what he was contemplating would shock his social circle and potentially damage his business reputation. A billionaire tech CEO marrying his Guatemalan housekeeper would be the kind of story that tabloids would feast on for months. His country club friends would whisper behind his back. Some of his business associates might question his judgment. The question was, did he have the courage to choose love over status? Did he have the wisdom to listen to his 8-year-old daughter who had seen something that all the adults had missed? Marcus got dressed and went to the kitchen, where he found Maria preparing Isabella's breakfast. She was moving quietly so as not to wake Isabella, who was still recovering from her surgery. The morning light coming through the window seemed to create a halo around Maria's dark hair as she worked. "Good morning, Maria," Marcus said softly. "Good morning, Mr. Montgomery. You are up very early today." "I couldn't sleep. I've been thinking about a lot of things." Maria glanced at him curiously, but continued preparing breakfast. "Is everything all right? Are you worried about Isabella's recovery?" "Isabella is going to be fine. Thanks to you." Marcus poured himself a cup of coffee and sat at the kitchen island, watching Maria work. "Maria, can I ask you something very personal?" "Of course. Do you ever think about getting married again? About finding love again?" Maria's hands paused for a moment before she continued slicing fruit for Isabella's breakfast. "I try not to think about such things. I am 45 years old, and I have a simple life. Romance is for younger people with different circumstances. But if the right person came along, someone who loved you and wanted to build a life with you." Maria looked at him strangely. "Mr. Montgomery, why are you asking me these questions?" Marcus took a deep breath. This was the moment of truth. "Because I think I might be that person." The knife slipped in Maria's hand, and she nearly cut herself. She set it down carefully and turned to face him, her eyes wide with shock. "Mr. Montgomery, I don't understand. I'm saying that I think I'm falling in love with you, Maria. And I want to know if there's any possibility that you might feel the same way about me." Maria stared at him for a long moment, then shook her head vigorously. "This is not possible. You are Mr. Montgomery, and I am just Maria the housekeeper. You are thinking crazy thoughts because you are grateful that I took care of Isabella in the hospital. But gratitude is not love. You're right that I'm grateful. But this isn't about gratitude, Maria. This is about the fact that over the past 2 weeks, I've finally opened my eyes and seen what Isabella saw all along. You're not just our housekeeper. You're the heart of our family. You're the person who has been holding us together and making our lives better every single day. Maria sat down heavily in one of the kitchen chairs, looking overwhelmed. This cannot be real. Men like you do not fall in love with women like me. What do you mean, men like me? Rich men, powerful men, educated men. You belong with those beautiful models you wanted to marry. Women who can stand beside you at fancy parties and speak intelligently about business and politics. Maria, you are intelligent. You speak 4 languages fluently. You're one of the wisest people I've ever met. And you are beautiful, more beautiful than any of those models because your beauty comes from your heart. Tears were streaming down Maria's face now. But I am a simple woman from Guatemala. I clean houses for a living. I have no education, no money, no social connections. Your friends will laugh at you. People will think you have lost your mind. Maybe some of them will. But, Maria, do you know what I've learned from Isabella? She sees people for who they really are, not for what they appear to be. And she chose you because she recognized something that all the adults missed. She saw that you have the most important quality a mother can have, a loving heart. Isabella is a child. She doesn't understand about social classes and appropriate matches. Maybe that's exactly why we should listen to her. Maybe children understand love better than adults do because they haven't learned to complicate it with all our social prejudices and expectations. Maria was quiet for a long time, wiping tears from her eyes. Even if what you are saying is true, even if you think you love me, this would never work. I cannot be the wife of a man like you. I don't know how to act at fancy dinners or speak to important people. Maria, look at me. Marcus reached across the table and took her hands in his. Do you think I care about any of that? Do you think I want someone who can perform at social events? Or do you think I want someone who will love me and my daughter genuinely? But your business, your reputation, will survive. Maria, I've spent the last 3 years trying to maintain an image of the perfect, successful businessman. But you know what? I've been miserable. I've been so focused on looking successful that I forgot how to actually live. Isabella has been growing up without really knowing her father because I was always working. Our house felt cold and empty despite all the expensive furniture and art. Maria looked around the warm, cozy kitchen that she had made the heart of their home. I just try to make it feel like a family lives here. And you succeeded. That's exactly my point. You took a house and made it a home. You took a sad little girl who had lost her mother and gave her love and stability. You took a workaholic father and taught him what really matters, even though you did it so quietly that it took me 3 years to notice. I don't know what to say, Maria whispered. Say what you feel in your heart, not what you think is appropriate or proper or socially acceptable. Just what you feel. Maria closed her eyes and took a shaky breath. When she opened them, Marcus saw something he had never seen before, vulnerability and hope mixed with fear. I have loved you for 2 years, she said so quietly he almost couldn't hear her. I know it was wrong and inappropriate, but I could not help myself. You are a good man, a loving father. And when I saw how hard you worked to provide for Isabella, how much you loved her even when you were too busy to show it properly, my heart opened to you without my permission. Marcus felt his breath catch. Then, why are you afraid? Because loving someone and being with them are 2 different things. I can love you from a distance, but being your wife, being Isabella's stepmother officially, trying to fit into your world, that terrifies me. Maria, you already are Isabella's mother in every way that matters. Making it official would just be acknowledging what's already true. At that moment, they heard footsteps on the stairs. Isabella appeared in the kitchen doorway, still in her pajamas, and moving carefully because of her surgery. What are you 2 talking about? Isabella asked, noticing the serious expressions on both their faces. Marcus and Maria looked at each other, and Marcus nodded encouragingly. Isabella, come sit down. We want to talk to you about something important. Isabella climbed carefully onto one of the kitchen stools, her eyes curious. Are you going to tell me you've decided to marry one of those pretty ladies after all? No, sweetheart. Actually, I want to ask you something. You said you wanted Maria to be your new mother. Did you mean that seriously? Of course I meant it seriously. I always mean things seriously when they're important. What if I told you that I think I want to marry Maria? That I think I love her and want her to be part of our family officially? Isabella's face lit up like Christmas morning. Really? You finally figured it out. Marcus laughed despite the emotional intensity of the moment. What do you mean, finally? Daddy, I've been watching you look at Maria differently for the past week. And I've seen how Maria looks at you when she thinks no one is watching. I was wondering when you two would realize that you like each other. Maria looked shocked. Isabella, what do you mean? Maria, when Daddy was at the hospital with us, you smiled more than I've ever seen you smile. And, Daddy, you've been asking Maria questions and really listening to her answers instead of just giving her instructions. It's been very obvious. Marcus and Maria stared at each other, then at Isabella. Had their feelings been so transparent that an 8-year-old had seen right through them? So you would be happy if Maria and I got married? Marcus asked. Daddy, it would make me the happiest girl in the whole world. Maria already loves us, and we already love her. We're already a family. We just haven't made it official yet. Marcus turned to Maria. You see? Even Isabella knows this is right. The only question now is whether you're brave enough to trust that love is more important than social expectations. Maria looked at Isabella's hopeful face, then at Marcus's earnest expression. She thought about the past 3 years, how this family had become her whole world, how much joy Isabella brought to her life, and how her feelings for Marcus had grown from respect to admiration to love. There would be so many challenges, she said quietly. People will say terrible things about both of us. Let them talk, Marcus said firmly. People always talk about things they don't understand. But, Maria, I would rather face criticism with you by my side than live a socially acceptable life without you. And what about Isabella? What if other children at school say mean things about her having a housekeeper for a stepmother? Then, I'll tell them that I have the best mother in the world, Isabella said matter-of-factly. And, if they don't understand that, then they're not very smart. Maria laughed through her tears at Isabella's simple confidence. You make it sound so easy, Pequena. Because it is easy. Love is supposed to be easy. It's only grown-ups who make it complicated. Marcus stood up and walked around the kitchen island to where Maria was sitting. He got down on one knee beside her chair, taking her hands in his. Maria Santos, I know this isn't the most romantic proposal in history, and I know we have a lot to figure out. But I love you, and Isabella loves you, and I believe that we can build something beautiful together if you're willing to take a chance on us. Maria looked down at Marcus, her heart racing. Everything logical in her mind told her this was impossible, but her heart was telling her something completely different. I love you too, she whispered. Both of you. You have become my family, my home, my heart. Is that a yes? Isabella asked excitedly. Maria looked at the little girl who had started this whole journey by insisting the news of Marcus Montgomery's engagement to his former housekeeper spread through New York's high society like wildfire. Within 24 hours of Marcus making the announcement public, his phone was ringing constantly with calls from shocked friends, concerned business partners, and excited journalists. Richard Blackwell was one of the first to call, his voice filled with disbelief. Marcus, please tell me this is some kind of joke. You're really going to marry your maid. She's not my maid, Richard. Her name is Maria Santos, and she's going to be my wife. But, Marcus, think about what you're doing. Your reputation, your social standing, your business relationships. You're throwing it all away for what? A moment of gratitude? Some kind of midlife crisis. Marcus had expected this reaction, but hearing it still stung. I'm not throwing anything away, Richard. I'm choosing love over status. Something you might not understand. Love? Marcus, you barely know this woman. Actually, I've known Maria for 3 years. I just wasn't paying attention before. But, now that I am, I've discovered that she's more genuine, more intelligent, and more loving than any of the models you paraded in front of me. Richard was quiet for a moment. The board of directors at Montgomery Industries is going to have serious concerns about this. Your personal choices reflect on the company. Then, they'll have to decide whether they value my leadership and track record more than they care about my personal life. But, Richard, I won't live my life according to other people's prejudices anymore. Similar conversations happened throughout that first week. Marcus's golf partners at the country club made snide comments about the help getting ideas above their station. Several business associates suggested he reconsider. His attorney warned him about the potential impact on his company's stock price. But the worst reactions came from some of Isabella's classmates' parents at her exclusive private school. Within days of the engagement announcement, Isabella came home in tears. "What happened, sweetheart?" Maria asked, immediately concerned when she saw Isabella's red eyes. "Some kids at school said mean things about you," Isabella sobbed. "They said their moms told them that you were trying to trick Daddy into marrying you for his money. They said you were just a maid who wanted to be rich." Maria felt like she had been slapped. She knelt down and hugged Isabella tightly, her own heart breaking at the cruelty of people who would use a child to express their prejudices. "I'm sorry, mi amor. I'm so sorry that people said those things to you. But they're wrong, aren't they, Maria? You love Daddy and me for real, not for money, right? Of course, Pequeña. I have loved you both long before your father and I decided to get married. Money cannot buy the kind of love we have." When Marcus came home that evening and learned what had happened at school, he was furious. Not at Isabella, and not at Maria, but at a society that would punish a child for her father's choice to follow his heart. "Maybe we should reconsider," Maria said quietly that night after Isabella had gone to bed. "I cannot bear for Isabella to suffer because of my presence in your life." "Absolutely not," Marcus said firmly. "Maria, if we give in to these people now, we're teaching Isabella that love should bow down to prejudice. Is that the lesson we want her to learn? But she's just a child. She shouldn't have to fight these battles." "No, she shouldn't. But, unfortunately, sometimes fighting for what's right means accepting that there will be difficult times. Isabella is strong, and she has both of us to support her. We'll get through this together." Marcus was right about Isabella's strength, but he was also determined to address the situation directly. The next day, he arranged a meeting with the headmaster of Isabella's school. "Dr. Williams," Marcus said as he sat across from the distinguished elderly man who had run the academy for 20 years, "I understand there have been some unfortunate incidents involving my daughter and other students making inappropriate comments about my fiancée." Dr. Williams looked uncomfortable. "Mr. Montgomery, children sometimes repeat things they hear at home without understanding the full context. Then, perhaps it's time for the school to provide some education about respect and tolerance. My fiancée is a remarkable woman who has devoted herself to caring for my family. She deserves to be treated with dignity, and my daughter deserves to attend school without being harassed about her family situation." "Of course, Mr. Montgomery. But you must understand that some of our families have traditional views about social boundaries. Dr. Williams, if this school cannot provide a safe environment for my daughter regardless of whom I choose to marry, then perhaps Isabella would be better served at an institution with more progressive values." The threat was clear, and Dr. Williams knew that losing a family as prominent and generous as the Montgomerys would be a significant blow to the school. "I'll speak with the teachers and send a note to all parents about the importance of teaching children respect for all families, regardless of their composition." Meanwhile, Maria was facing her own challenges. The other domestic workers in the neighborhood treated her with a mixture of envy and suspicion. Some were genuinely happy for her success, but others whispered that she had forgotten where she came from or accused her of putting on airs. The situation came to a head when Maria went to the local market where she had shopped for the Montgomery family for 3 years. Several of the vendors, who had always been friendly before, now treated her coldly. "So, you think you're too good for us now?" sneered Mrs. Patterson, who ran the flower stall where Maria had bought fresh flowers for the house every week. "I don't think I'm too good for anyone," Maria replied quietly. "I'm still the same person I've always been." "The same person doesn't go from cleaning toilets to planning to marry a billionaire," Mrs. Patterson shot back. "What did you do to trick him into proposing?" Maria felt tears stinging her eyes, but before she could respond, an unexpected voice spoke up behind her. "Excuse me, ma'am, but I think you're mistaken about something." Everyone turned to see Marcus standing there with Isabella beside him. He had his arm around his daughter, and both of them looked determined. "My name is Marcus Montgomery, and I'm engaged to Maria Santos. But I want to make something very clear. Maria didn't trick me into anything. I'm marrying her because she's the most loving, devoted, and genuine person I've ever met. She's been taking care of my family with selfless dedication for 3 years, and I finally realized that I'm incredibly lucky that she's willing to have me. Mrs. Patterson looked embarrassed at being confronted by Marcus himself, but she wasn't backing down. Well, that's all very nice, but people like you and people like her don't usually mix. People like us? Isabella spoke up, her young voice clear and strong. You mean people who love each other? Because that's the only thing that matters about me and my dad and Maria. We love each other, and we're a family. An older woman who had been listening to the conversation stepped forward. That little girl is right, she said firmly. I've been watching Maria Santos shop in this market for 3 years, and she's always been kind, respectful, and generous. She tips well, she's polite to everyone, and she clearly loves that child like her own. If Mr. Montgomery is smart enough to see her value, then good for both of them. Other shoppers began murmuring agreement, and Mrs. Patterson found herself outnumbered. The market incident became a turning point, showing Maria that she had more support than she had realized. But the real test came 3 weeks later, when Marcus decided to host an engagement party. Instead of a small, private gathering, he chose to hold a large event and invite everyone who mattered in their lives: his business associates, Isabella's school community, Maria's friends from the Latino community, and their extended family members. Are you sure about this? Maria asked nervously as they planned the party. Wouldn't it be easier to have a small ceremony with just close family? Maria, I want the whole world to know how proud I am to be marrying you. I'm not going to hide our love or be ashamed of our choice. If people can't accept us, that's their problem, not ours. The engagement party was held at Marcus's country estate, and the guest list was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. Tech industry executives mingled with housekeepers and nannies. Private school parents chatted with members of Maria's church. Isabella's classmates played with the children of Maria's friends from Guatemala. At first, there was tension in the air. People stayed in their familiar social groups, eyeing each other suspiciously across the elegant garden where the party was being held. But Isabella, with the fearless social skills of a child, began introducing people to each other and breaking down barriers. Mrs. Chun, this is my friend Rosa, Isabella announced, pulling together the mother of one of her classmates and the daughter of Maria's friend. Rosa is teaching me to speak Spanish, and Mrs. Chun knows all about art because she works at a museum. Slowly, people began to relax and actually talk to each other. Marcus watched with pride as Maria moved gracefully through the party, speaking English with his business associates, Spanish with her community friends, and showing genuine interest in everyone she met. The turning point came when Dr. Williams, the headmaster of Isabella's school, found himself in conversation with Maria about education and child development. He was clearly impressed by her insights and her obvious intelligence. Mrs. Santos, he said, Isabella is a remarkable child. You've obviously played an important role in her development. Thank you, Maria replied. Isabella is very special. She has taught me as much as I've taught her. Have you ever considered pursuing formal education yourself? With your natural understanding of children and your multilingual abilities, you might make an excellent teacher. Maria's eyes lit up. I did want to be a teacher when I was young, before circumstances led me in other directions. Perhaps it's not too late to revisit that dream. Nearby, Marcus overheard this conversation and felt his heart swell with pride. This was exactly what he had hoped for. People seeing Maria for who she really was rather than making assumptions based on her previous job. The success of the engagement party marked a turning point in how people viewed Marcus and Maria's relationship. While there were still critics and gossips, many people began to see that this wasn't a story of a gold digger manipulating a rich man, but rather a genuine love story between two people who had found each other despite social barriers. 6 months later, Marcus and Maria were married in a beautiful ceremony that perfectly reflected their blended family. The wedding took place in the garden where they had held their engagement party, with decorations that honored both Marcus's American background and Maria's Guatemalan heritage. Isabella walked down the aisle as the flower girl, wearing a white dress with traditional Guatemalan embroidery that Maria had taught her to appreciate. She carried a basket of roses and baby's breath, beaming with joy as she scattered petals for her soon-to-be official mother. Maria wore a simple but elegant ivory dress that made her look radiant. As she walked down the aisle toward Marcus, who was waiting for her with tears of joy in his eyes, every person in attendance could see the genuine love between them. The ceremony was officiated by both a priest from Marcus's Episcopal Church and a pastor from Maria's Catholic parish, symbolizing the coming together of their different worlds. Isabella stood between them as they exchanged vows, holding both their hands. "I promise to love you not just as my husband, but as my partner in raising Isabella and building a family based on love, respect, and understanding," Maria said in her vows. "I promise to always see you the way Isabella saw you from the beginning, as the heart of our family and the person who makes our house a home," Marcus replied. When they kissed as husband and wife, Isabella cheered loudly, and there wasn't a dry eye in the audience. The reception was a celebration of everything they had overcome to reach this moment. Marcus's business partners danced with Maria's church friends. Isabella's classmates learned Spanish songs from Maria's nieces who had flown in from Guatemala. The segregated social groups from the engagement party had been replaced by one large, happy family. During his toast, Marcus spoke directly to the critics who had doubted their relationship. "Some people said that Maria and I were too different to make this work. They said we came from different worlds and could never bridge the gap between them. But what they didn't understand is that love doesn't see social classes or economic differences. Love sees the heart. And Maria has the most beautiful heart I've ever known." Maria responded with her own toast. 3 years ago, I came to work for the Montgomery family as their housekeeper. I thought I was just taking a job to support myself. What I found instead was a family that would become my whole world. Marcus, you have given me not just your love, but the chance to be Isabella's mother officially. Isabella, you taught me that love was more important than appearances. Then, she looked at the man who had finally opened his eyes to see what had been right in front of him all along. "Yes," she said, her voice growing stronger. "It's a yes." Isabella cheered and carefully hugged both of them. And Marcus kissed Maria for the first time right there in the kitchen where she had been taking care of their family for 3 years. But even as they celebrated this moment of joy and love, they all knew that the real challenges were just beginning. The world outside their kitchen was not going to understand or approve of their choice. They would face criticism, judgment, and possibly even threats to Marcus's business. The question was whether their love would be strong enough to withstand the storm that was coming, and whether they could prove that sometimes the most unconventional choices lead to the most beautiful outcomes. That dinner was the first time the three of them had sat together as equals, and Marcus was struck by how natural it felt. Isabella chattered happily, switching between English and Spanish as she always did with Maria. Maria shared stories about her day and asked Isabella thoughtful questions about her recovery and her feelings about returning to school. For the first time, Marcus could imagine the three of them as a real family. Not as an employer, an employee, and a child, but as 3 people who cared about each other and wanted to build a life together. After Isabella went to bed that night, Marcus knew what he had to do. But first, he needed to have one more honest conversation with Maria. This conversation would determine the future of all their lives. The question was whether Maria would be brave enough to believe that love really could conquer the social and economic differences between them, and whether Marcus would be brave enough to choose love over status and follow his daughter's wisdom instead of society's expectations. The answer would come the next day, in a conversation that would surprise both of them and set in motion a series of events that would change their family forever. "I've realized I was looking for the wrong things in a wife. Marcus, are you feeling all right? These women are perfect for you." "That's just it, Richard. They're perfect for the image I thought I wanted to project. But they're not perfect for my family." After he hung up, Marcus sat in his study for a long time, thinking about what Isabella had said. His daughter had asked him to see Maria the way she saw her. The question was he brave enough to do that? The answer would come sooner than he expected, and it would change all of their lives forever. Marcus frowned slightly. Why not, sweetheart? They were all lovely women. They were nice, Isabella said carefully, but I don't think they really want to be my mommy. I think they just want to be your wife. Marcus was quiet for a moment, surprised by his daughter's insight. What makes you say that? None of them asked me what I like to read, or what makes me scared, or what my favorite food is. They just talked about fancy places and fancy things. Marcus kissed Isabella's forehead. Well, we don't have to decide right away. Maybe we can meet some other people too. But, as Marcus left Isabella's room that night, he couldn't shake the feeling that his daughter had seen something he had missed. The question was whether he was ready to listen to what an 8-year-old had figured out about love, family, and what really mattered in life.